Hey there tech fans, Rick here again from the O-Ray team. In today's video, I'd like to discuss HDMI switches to help you find the perfect product for your particular setup. Now with the ever-expanding universe of home media devices and other portable technologies, you can very quickly run out of HDMI connections on the back of your widescreen TV or even your home computer monitor, and that's exactly what an HDMI switch was designed to help with. These products allow you to connect up multiple inputs to the back of the switch and then decide which of those inputs are sent along to the display at any given point just by tapping a button. So they essentially allow you to share that monitor with a wide variety of media devices. Now, with most modern monitors, you've got maybe one or two HDMI connections. So if you have a small number of media devices, you can connect those up to the monitor and use the remote control to switch between them. But if you get to the third device or fourth device, you're going to need something like this to expand that HDMI connection. Now, there are a few things to keep in mind if you're in the market for an HDMI switch, and I'll go through those now. Probably the first and biggest question is, where are you going to use it? Because there are two fundamental places you'll need an HDMI switch, either with a home media setup or on your desk if you have a lot of computers. So let's start with the home media setup. If you've got a DVD player, maybe you've got a cable box, home computer, game console, streaming device, you're already at 5 products. You may have 1 or 2 HDMI connections on the back of the monitor. So a switch like this that can handle 4 or 5 HDMI inputs is great because it allows you to very quickly switch between those depending on what you want to watch on that monitor. If you're at a home computer setup though, you may not have as many devices, but you may need different types of connections. Also, you'll be closer to the switch. So the first consideration is, am I going to use it in a home media system or am I going to use it on my desk around the computer? And that'll drive sort of the switch you're going to go with. So for example, if you're using it at a home computer and it's within reach, you can go with a pretty simple switch like this where you can actually reach the switch and hit the button to switch between the inputs. But if you're using it in a home media setup, you may be back comfortably seated on your couch and you're 10 feet away from the switch. So you want to find one like this that has a remote control with it so you can actually control the input with a remote control from your couch. So that's the first consideration. The second consideration is the number of connections. Now the recommendation there is if you have 4 devices today, don't buy a switch with 4 inputs. Try to buy a switch with 5 or 6 inputs because you're going to want to accommodate for growth because you know you're going to get new devices that you're going to add down the road. You don't want to have to replace that switch in a year or two when you add that 5th or 6th device. So if you've got 4 today, find a switch that's got 5 or 6 so you've got a little extra elbow room for expansion. The same goes for the computer setup because you may be using that today with a home computer, maybe a laptop, maybe a portable device, maybe even a streaming device on your desk. So try and find one that'll accommodate the number of ports you need. The next thing to consider is the type of connections, and this is really important. With home media setups, most of the connections you'll make there are standard HDMI. So they're a full-size HDMI connection for the inputs and the outputs, and that works well for a home media setup. It may be the same on your computer desk as well, but there are newer devices today that communicate audio and video over USB-C connections. So with this particular switch, it has 2 HDMI inputs and 1 USB-C input, which is perfect if you have a phone or a tablet or some other portable device that can move audio and video across the USB-C connection. So that's something to consider as well. The next has to do with the type of video you're going to push across that switch because there are different resolutions out there and different HDMI standards. So you want to make sure that the switch you purchase is at least HDMI 2.0 compliant. And you may want to look for a switch that does full ultra high definition 4K 60 frames a second video because even if you're not pushing that to a display today, if you upgrade that display later on or you upgrade some of those media devices and the switch can't handle that, you're going to be stuck with a 1080p video or maybe even 4K at 30 frames a second, which is going to degrade the picture. So try to get the next best video standard if you can in that switch. And then the last thing I'll talk about is the way they're powered. Now most of these switches run on standard 5 volt and they have micro USB connections or USB-C connections on the back. And that's kind of important because they come with power supplies in most cases, but if it's got a micro USB or USB-C connection on the back, that means you can typically plug that cable into an available port on your computer, or some of the new modern displays actually have a USB-A connection on the back and you can power it there. That just makes it a little bit easier for the wiring and you don't have to worry about finding an electrical outlet to plug in that power supply. So those are the things to consider. Now what I'm going to do next is take a closer look at both of these switches because this one is pretty much perfect for a home media setup and this one is perfect for a computer setup, and I'll explain why in a minute, so stay tuned for that. The O-Ray UHD 401 4 input 1 output HDMI 2.0 compliant switch is a great choice for most home theater systems. The unit includes an infrared remote control which makes selecting the proper input very easy from the comfort of your couch. You can also use the button on the front of the unit to step through the various inputs. On the rear of the product, you'll find 4 full-size HDMI ports that are used for connecting your various media devices, as well as a power port. On the side of the unit is another full-size HDMI output port that connects to your display. The unit provides audio extraction capabilities, which will actually strip the audio from the selected source and allow you to pass it to a home stereo system through this audio output connection for the ultimate theater experience. On the bottom of the unit, you'll find rubber pads to keep it from sliding around in the top of your cabinet and ventilation holes to keep the electronics inside at a comfortable temperature. The O-Ray UHD 301C 3 input, 1 output HDMI 2.0 compliant switch is a great choice for most home computer setups. It allows you to very quickly select from up to 3 different input sources and send that selected source to your computer monitor. One of those media devices can connect through the USB-C port on the front, which is becoming very popular with most modern portable devices like laptops, phones, and tablets. On the rear of the device, you'll find 2 additional full-size HDMI ports for 2 more devices, as well as a full-size HDMI output port that connects to your monitor. To the left of that is the DC power port, and you can use the included power supply with the unit, or you can use a short micro USB to USB-A connection to any computer on the network. You can make the selection with the button on the front. The product is also fully capable of supporting 4K, ultra-high definition resolution media at 60 frames a second, and is also HDCP 2.2 compliant. I hope that overview was helpful, and again, both of these switches will work just fine in either scenario, but they each have distinct advantages. For example, this might be the perfect HDMI switch for a media setup because of the inclusion of the remote control, which provides a lot of flexibility for you to decide which input is sent to the display from quite a distance away on your couch. And this might be the perfect setup for your home computer because of the inclusion of the USB-C port on the front, which is used on most portable electronics today and makes connection really easy to your computer display. So the first question you have to answer is, where am I going to use the switch? If it's a home media setup, find one with a remote control. If it's for the computer, try and find one with a USB-C connection on it. You're going to want to use that a lot, and you probably get by with a smaller switch that's less expensive. The second question you have to answer is, how many devices are you going to connect up to that switch? If you've got 3 today, find a switch with 4 ports or 5 ports, and that provides flexibility down the road if you buy other devices and you know you're going to want to add extra devices to that display down the road. So find one with an extra port or 2, and you've got plenty of flexibility. The third thing you have to answer is, what kind of media are you going to use the switch with? If it's a home media setup, you're probably looking for a switch that'll support 4K 60 frames a second ultra high definition media, maybe even HDMI 2.0 or later compliant. With a home computer system, you may not have to worry about that, but you may. So it's important to understand exactly what your monitor can support, what kind of media devices you're connecting up, and buy a switch that'll support that. And even if you're not doing 4K 60 frames a second media today, you'll probably upgrade your display down the road or some of your media devices. So try and buy a switch that's a little beyond what your needs are today, and that way you can accommodate future technology. The last question has to do with the type of connections on the switch. If it's a home media setup, you're probably okay with standard HDMI connections for the input and the output. That's what most devices use to connect. If you're going to use it with your computer, try and find one that's got a couple of HDMI connections and maybe 1 or 2 USB-C connections on it, because everything in that portable realm is moving to that type of connection. And that's pretty much it today. So hopefully you found this clip helpful. And until next time, thanks for watching.